So the first thing we're going to draw on our file folder is the main body of the skimmer. So we do need to understand that there are certain measurements. So the first thing we're going to focus on is drawing it to be an 11 by 4 rectangle. So that's what we're going to focus on doing first. And then we're going to come back in here and do this part because it has kind of like a back angle that where we have to cut some other pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do on my file folder is just draw a bottom line. I'm going to make sure that I have my ruler kind of flush with the side of the paper. And then there's also a little line for guidance right here that you guys may not be able to see because I have the colors inverted. I did the color inversion just because I thought it might make the black lines pop out a little better. So I'm going to draw this line across. I'm just going to draw it all the way across. Hope it's pretty straight. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my ruler. And on each side of this line that I just drew all the way across, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put a dot at 4 inches. Because we're trying to draw a 4 by 11 rectangle. And again, I'm going to make sure that my ruler is kind of flush with the side of the paper. And hopefully, if it goes through both marks and is flush with the side of the paper, we'll have a pretty good line across the top of the ruler. While it's still sitting in the same spot, I'm going to mark this 11-inch mark because we're just trying to draw a 4-inch by 11-inch rectangle at the moment. And again, a good thing to do is to see if you can make sure that the ruler is flush with the bottom edge of the graph. That's pretty much ensured, of the file folder. Not sure why I called it a graph. And then we can draw this line straight down. So now we should have on our file folder a 4-inch by 11-inch rectangle. Now I didn't draw a line on this side. I'm just going to use this flat side of my file folder so that again I know for sure that this is a right angle on this side. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to come in here again, just trying to line up with this bottom line as well as I can. Putting the ruler on the edge of the file folder. Now my ruler actually, the end of my ruler is 0. Some rulers, let me see if I have an example. Some rulers here, if you look at this ruler, you can notice that this is actually 0 on the ruler. There's a little bit. So if I were using this ruler to make sure my measurements are exact, part of my ruler would have to hang off the end. So just keep that in mind. And this bottom angle is a right angle. So as long as, if you're using a ruler more similar to this one, as long as you are flush with this bottom line and this line kind of looks straight, you're going to hopefully be able to draw some right angles on there. Another thing that you could do to check to see if stuff is right angles is just get an index card and just kind of check to see if it's right angles, because we want our skimmers to be as accurately drawn as possible because it's going to impact how they function once we are using them as a skimmer. So back to what we were doing. Let's put this ruler on here. I like this ruler because the end does actually represent 0. So we're going to come in from this end here, and I'm going to draw on each side a mark at 3 inches. So I'm going to draw a mark here at 3 inches. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a mark here at 3 inches. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw my line straight across. And I'll have some extra length to the line. And you'll understand what I'm talking about with that in a second. So again, I'm going to just bring in my index card just for a second, just to make sure these are pretty much 90 degrees. And they are. So now what I'm going to do is on either side of my line, I am going to mark half an inch in, half an inch up from this bottom, and then half an inch down from the top. Since I know this is 4 inches, I'm just going to come down here half an inch because it's 4 inches. So that's a half an inch down from the top line and up from the bottom line. And then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. The reason I'm doing it on both lines is to increase the likelihood that I'm going to get a right angle when I draw these lines and they're not going to be crooked. So now I'm going to draw these lines for this part. Well, let's go ahead and come over here and actually measure a half an inch down from the bottom. And you can see that actually over here, I've gotten a little bit off with my measurements, but it should be okay. Maybe you can try to measure yours more precisely. The better you measure, the better your skimmer is going to function. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to draw this line that's a half inch down from the top of this rectangle. I'm going to try to draw it. It wants you guys to draw this part solid because you're going to cut this line and this part dotted because this line right here is just going to be a fold mark. So we're going to come down here and we're going to draw this same line down at the bottom. I'm going to draw it across this line solid because it's a cut line, and then this line dotted. So again, I'm just going to kind of quickly check to see. So I know that this index card, one thing that you guys could do is exactly 3 inches wide. So the fact that it fits here is good, and the fact that it fits down here is a good indication that these lines are pretty much parallel. So we're finished drawing the body of our skimmer, and again, this line from here to here is 4 inches. But what we need to understand from our skimmer is from this point to this point is 3 inches. And inside this part from here to here, this little bitty part is a half an inch there. And this part's also a half an inch. And if we add 1/2 plus 1/2, we get 1 plus 3 is 4. So we know that these sides are equal, but I just thought it was really the easiest to start with drawing it as a rectangle. So again, we know that this is 4 inches, and then we know that this part is 4 inches. So what we're going to draw next is we're going to try to draw the fins. So what I'm going to draw first for the fins is I'm going to draw this half inch, well, actually, what I'm going to draw first is this part, this outside part of my fins is the part that I'm going to draw first. So for this part, I have a 3-inch section and a 3-inch section, so the total distance is 6 inches. So I'm going to start with drawing a 6-inch line. And then I'm going to use my handy dandy index card to make sure I have right angles. And then I'm just going to draw a 3-inch line. This is exactly 3 inches, so I'm actually going to just use my index card to help me out with that, drawing that line on either side of this 6-inch line. So just a second and I will start with the fin. So I want to make sure I'm going to have enough room to cut this out because we should be able to fit all the pieces on one side of a file folder. So here I am. I can do that on this one. So I'm just going to start right here. And again, a little bit up from the body part so I can have room to cut everything out. Let's try to make sure as much as possible that this is at a 90-degree angle. See, my index card fits there pretty well, and it fits here pretty well, so it should be pretty much at a 90-degree angle. So here I'm just going to draw a line that is 6 inches long. And before I move my ruler, I'm going to mark the 3-inch mark because each fin is only 3 inches long on the bottom. But I found this easier to do. Now over here, I'm really just going to use my index card. Make sure it's meeting up with this line at a right angle. And if you don't have an index card, what you could do is just use the corner of a piece of paper. So it's meeting up at a right angle. And it does measure 3 inches right there. So I'm bringing my ruler back in. So it measures that 3 inches. So I'm going to drop that line down right there to that 3-inch mark. Now, I am going to, over here on this side, at least indicate where the 3-inch mark is up top. It's right here at the very tippity top of that. So again, we can kind of use our index card to indicate that part just because it's not going to be drawn. So now we have this measurement at the top of our scoop that is 1/2 inch. So that's what I'm going to add now, is at the top of my scoop. And again, just to make sure I'm adding it at the right height, I'm going to plop this index card over here. And right here, I am going to put my ruler and put a 1/2 inch mark and draw that line in right there. And then over here at this end, I'm going to bring my index card over just again to keep those right angles. The better you measure your skimmer, the better it's going to end up being and performing. So then I'm going to kind of measure this 1/2 inch mark. So I have that drawn out pretty well. In the center here, I'm also supposed to have a 1/2 inch mark. And again, you could bring your handy dandy index card back in, kind of line it up straight with the bottom just to make sure we have those right angles. Another thing you could use is a what? What helps you draw perfect angles? If you thought protractor, you are correct. That helps you draw perfect angles. So now what I've done is I've kind of drawn this funky outside part of it. We don't have a measurement for this part. So that's why I drew this funky outside part first. And now if I just connect the ends pretty perfectly, look, like try to make sure you're connecting the ends pretty well. If I draw this line down and then connect here, then I have my fins drawn pretty well. The cool thing is this angle right here should also be a right angle the way that it turns out. And look at that, my index card fits in there pretty much perfectly. So it is indeed a right angle. So now we have our fins. So what I also suggest that you guys do is write your name on every piece of your skimmer because, or your initials. For some reason, as we're building our skimmers, our pieces go missing, and this way you know if it's your piece. So that is why. So unfortunately, I think I have ran out of room to be able to have 3 inches because between here, oh, well, actually, let's just stick with right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do my air scoop. Now the air scoop, if you look at it, you can break it down, and this inside part right here is actually just a 3-inch by 3-inch square. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a 3-inch by 3-inch square. And again, I'm going to try to use my lovely index card to make sure I get those right angles. I do not want to measure this one exactly from a side because since I'm focusing on the center right now, I can't put this air scoop up to the side of my file folder because I'm adding in these little trapezoids off each side. So what we're going to focus on right now is drawing the center of the air scoop. So we know this line was pretty much straight, so let's just try to stay in line with that guy. as much as possible. Or if you can see, I can also kind of try to line up my hash mark here. If it's not straight, you can kind of see if you line that hash mark up with the edge of your file folder. So I'm going to just come over here so I have some room to add to it and just try my best to make sure it is a straight line. So I'm going to draw my straight line that's 3 inches long. And then bring in my handy dandy index card, kind of turn my paper, and then measure 3 inches again, which is the exact height of this index card. So that's a nice and an easy measurement. Oh, I think I made a mistake there and put this up a little bit too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip my file folder over, and let's start right here. Let's just try to draw a straight line across. That's 3 inches long. And then use our index card to make sure we have a right angle to draw this line that is 3 inches up. And then again over here, let's just use our index card and draw 3 inches up. And still, if our index card fits inside this should still be 3 inches, so we can just use that index card again to draw the line that is 3 inches across. And again, if you do not have an index card, you can just use a ruler. I'm just using it to ensure that I have my right angles. So here we need to add to each side at the bottom a 3/8 measurement on either side, and at the top a 1/8 measurement on either side. So I'm going to start with 3/8. So this is a 1/8, 2/8, 3/8. So I'm going to line up that 3/8 mark right there with the edge of my square, and I'm going to add 3/8 to the side of it. And then here, I'm going to do the same thing over here, line up at the edge of the ruler, come out to this 1/8, 2/8, 3/8 mark, and then add to the side of that piece. Now I'm going to come up here and do the same thing at the tippity top, except for it's going to be to the 1/8 mark, which is right there. It's just a little bitty addition to that line. And then I'm going to come up here to the tippity top again and do the 1/8 line again. So now I have those extensions, and I can just connect the ends of these lines with a diagonal line. And now I have my air scoop. Whoops, didn't connect it all the way. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then I should have a pretty much perfect air scoop. There you go. There's our air scoop. These right here are actually going to be fold lines. So if you want to remind yourself that this is a fold line so that you don't try to cut it off or anything, you're going to cut around this outside part, and these do become fold lines. And again, I'm going to put my initials on my piece so nobody can take it from me. So all I'm going to do next is I'm going to cut out all my pieces. I'm going to cut out this entire rectangle. I'm going to cut on these lines, and then I'm just going to cut out around these pieces. And I will be back with an assembly video.